This video features the guitar and bass parts that are present during the intro, verses, and bridges of the song. The tuning used in this video and on the record is standard E and 440 wavelength calibration. The main riff in the song is going to be 2 full measures long. It's going to start out working off of the low open E string. This is what it's going to sound like. Notice that the riff works off of open strings and single notes. There are no chords in it. Also remember that a riff is a pattern that repeats itself throughout music. Let's use a 1 finger, 1 fret approach to play this. Any notes on the 2nd fret will be covered with the 1st finger. Any notes on the 3rd fret will be covered with the middle finger. Any notes on the 4th fret will be covered with the ring finger. And any notes on the 5th fret will be covered by the pinky. Let's take a look at the first measure of the riff. It'll start out by picking down on the open low E string. It'll be allowed to ring for 3/8 of a measure. In sheet music, that's a quarter note with a dot beside it to indicate time and a half. The next note will be an upward picking motion right after the 2 beat on the open low E string again. The next note will be the G note located on the 3rd fret. On 3, you pick down. The next note is G sharp picked up on the N beat after 3. The next note is the A note located on the 5th fret, picked down on 4. Then the last note of the first measure is the open E again, picked on the N beat right after 4. So this is the first measure. It'll be counted like this. I'll give you a 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Notice that when I count 2, I didn't pick anything. The open E is still ringing from the first time I picked it, until I picked the E on the hand beat after it again. I'll do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. At this point, the open low E is going to be allowed to ring for another half a measure. In sheet music, that final 8th note of the first measure would have a tie to a half note on the next measure to indicate that it's allowed to ring out. So the final half of the second measure will be 3 and 4 and. What we'll do there is you'll place your pinky on the D string at the 5th fret, which is a G note, where you'll pick down. Then you'll pick up on the E note, which is your 1st finger on the same string at the 2nd fret. Then you're going to pick the open D string down on 4. Then you'll pick the D string up on the N beat and play your E note on the 2nd fret. So this is what you'll have. 3 and 4 and, just like this. Notice the picking motion, down, up, down, up. 3 and 4 and. And this is the whole riff pattern that you have. I'll give you a 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Now that you know the pattern for the main riff, you're going to work off of the low open E string 6 times using it to start the song. Twice before the vocals enter, and 4 more times after the vocals enter. At that point, you're going to shift up in pitch to the open A string and play the riff pattern twice more. The first time through A, you're going to play the riff pattern exactly the same way without making any adjustments. The second time through though, you're going to have to make a slight adjustment to the 2nd measure. Let me do it one time so you can see what I mean. Okay, you see what I did there? The 1st finger was laid on the 2nd fret and it's barring the D, G, and B strings. And that came with an upward picking motion right after 1. On the 2nd measure. That could be picked downwards, but I prefer to pick upwards just for the sake of keeping time with my foot. The next note was on the G string at the 5th fret, picked upwards. Again, you could pick that down. I'm picking up for the sake of keeping time with my foot. Picked up on the beat after 2. The next note was on the 2nd fret of the G string. Picked up on the beat after 3. Then on 4, the open G string was picked down, open. Then the last note of that measure, the hand beat, was picked up on the D string at the 2nd fret, which is an E note. This is what you had. Just like that. Sometimes it's not practical to count all the downbeats when you're playing. Sometimes it's actually more difficult. So I'm just going to count those as the ands. Like this. And, 4, and. Just like that. So let me do the riff one more time so you can see what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Let's give that entire section of music a once through just to make sure that you fully understand what's going on there. I'll give a 4 count lead in and tap my foot, but I'm not going to count aloud as I play it because this passage is too long to count out loud and I'm too short-winded to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it breaks for the chorus. Guitar 2 is virtually going to double guitar 1 note for note. There's just going to be a couple subtle differences though. Let me play the riff pattern one time just so you can see what I mean. Take notice of this note located on the D string at the 2nd fret. That's an E note. The other guitar part is going to the low open E there instead. On the record, you're going to hear the higher pitch D more than you will the lower pitch D. It's located at the very end of the first measure on the final beat, the upbeat right after 4. Let me do this a couple more times just to make sure you have it. Here's a 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Once the music progresses to the point where the riff pattern shifts up to the open A string, the same adjustment will be made for the A note located on the G string at the 2nd fret when you're playing the riff pattern. This is what it's going to sound like the first time through. The second time through, the first measure will be the same, but you're going to make an adjustment for the second measure. This is the point at which the second measure begins. Your finger is already on the A note. Lay it across the B string and bar that note. You'll be picking these 2 notes together upwards. You're accenting with the A major chord being played by the other guitar, just like this. At that point, the other guitar fills, just like this. You're going to fill too, with that same feel, but it's going to be done slightly different. Place your 2nd and 3rd fingers on the A note, located at the same position on the 2nd fret of the G string. You're going to bend this up a step and a half in pitch. When I say a step and a half in pitch, I mean to bend it, so it sounds like the note located on the G string at the 5th fret, where the other guitar is starting its fill. This is what the note will sound like when you bend it. Okay, this is what you're going to have. Now I use 2 fingers there because the strings are really tight, and it's physically difficult to do that. This makes it a little bit physically easier to do, but still difficult to bend it without being a little bit flat. So one time through the entire passage in A, I'm going to do this to make sure you understand what's going on. I'll give a 4-count lead in, but I'm not going to count like I normally would because this takes a little bit more focus than usual. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's pretty difficult to do. Trying to get this down, this accent with the A major, and then still get to the A note to do the bend, that's very difficult to do. This is one of the glories of having 2 guitar players in a band. If you have another guitar player, you can rely on your teammate to get that chord. That split second buys you a little extra time to get your fingers in position to bend that note. The bass is going to be played almost exactly the same as guitar 1. So if you're using a pick, go back and watch the section on guitar 1 and pick the bass exactly the way that the guitar is being picked there. Working off of the low E string, this is what the bass is going to sound like. As you can see, it's really no different. When the music progresses up to the open A string, this is what you're going to have. You notice that the bass is filling with the guitar the exact same way. But working off of A, the second pass through, the guitar is actually accenting on an A major chord where the bass is just letting the A string ring out. Let me do that one more time just so you can see what I mean. It's not really a big deal. You can either do it the way it is on the record, or you can accent with the guitar there by adding an extra open A string. It's really up to you. This is what you would do if you were going to accent with the guitar. If you plan to play in a typical working cover band, it will take about 45 songs to do a gig. Keeping the set list fairly simple will make it easier to reach that plateau. Otherwise, it may take forever to get to 45 songs that you can do well as a complete group. The songs will be easier to learn, require less time to do so, and less practice to stay sharp. Your band will sound more professional too. It will be tighter and make fewer mistakes as a whole. You will be able to spend more time and effort on vocals and showmanship. It doesn't matter how flashy the music is. The important thing is that the music is good, marketable, people show up to watch, and that the bars are making money.